Hi everyone, it's Rosie from Talking About BPD, and today I wanted to make a video about Dialectical Behaviour Therapy, also known as DBT for short, not to be confused with CBT, which is Cognitive Behaviour Therapy. So DBT is a therapy that I've been doing for around 1.5, nearly 2 years, and it's something that has helped me beyond my wildest dreams. It took me around 10 years to actually be able to access this therapy, and I tried other therapies in the past that really hadn't been as effective for me or hadn't given me the kind of support that I've actually needed. So it was an absolute delight when I found DBT and I could see it working for me really quite quickly. So just to give a little summary about what DBT is. So DBT is a therapy that was designed by a doctor called Marsha Linehan, or Linehan, I'm not sure how to say her name, and she was actually a patient in a psychiatric hospital in the USA when she was a young person, and as she grew up she learned how to cope with her mental health problems, and she actually studied to become a doctor and devised a therapy for people with borderline personality disorder, which is what she also had. So it's a therapy that's been designed by somebody who really knows the condition inside out on a personal level, which I find really cool actually. So DBT is designed for people who have really intense emotions that come very quickly, can take quite a long time to come down, and people that have difficulty regulating the emotions. And of course, as you probably know if you're watching this video, with intense emotions often comes very intense urges and impulses, often as a response to try and bring down those emotions or to cope or to feel somewhat better. So typically people with intense emotions might struggle with things like self-harm or possibly drugs and alcohol problems or eating disorders, or things like that, addictive behaviours or obsessive behaviours, for example. So it's been designed to try to help people regulate their emotions and their surroundings and the world around them, and help them manage their lives and really just reduce that suffering a little bit. DBT is actually an evidence-based therapy, so there has been research into it to put that evidence base behind it. So there are some studies to suggest that DBT is an effective treatment for people who are diagnosed with BPD or who have emotional intensity of some kind and struggle with managing that in their relationships, their world, maybe in their job, if they have a job, in their family. And it's also quite... it also acknowledges that people who are doing DBT and who have intense emotions might have that because of the things that they've been through in life. So I'm just going to consult my book to explain a bit more about that. So this book is the DBT Skills Training Handouts and Worksheets, and I've actually got a review of this book on my channel, so if you want to see the video about this book itself, I'll put the link down below. So the handbook for this type of therapy states that people with intense emotions do have an emotional vulnerability, that most likely they're born with. So it says here, these people are more sensitive to emotional stimuli. So if something happens, what one person might not react to very strongly, somebody else, like me for example, might react really, really intensely. It says here also they experience emotions much more often than other people. I don't know about you, but for me, I see myself going up and down, reacting a lot more than other people around me do. I'm very sensitive to all emotions, has to be said. And it says here that emotions seem to hit for no reason from out of the blue. Normally I think there is a reason, but because they can come quite quickly, it can seem like they just come out of the blue, like as a force of nature, just struck by lightning, and everything's just so emotional, it's such a storm. And it says that emotions are more intense. Their emotions hit like a ton of bricks, and their emotions are long lasting. So really what somebody might recover from quite quickly, somebody with emotional intensity might take quite a long time for that emotion to kind of subside, or, you know, instead of feeling sad for an hour, somebody might feel sad for a whole week about something. And it also goes on here to talk about the impulsivity relating to that. I mean, to me it's quite obvious that if you have really strong emotions, then your urges and your impulses are going to be in tandem with that, because it's quite natural that how you feel is going to affect how you behave, actually. The next section that this book explains is absolutely key, and it taps into the thing that I said before, that lots of people with emotional intensity and difficulty regulating emotions have been through difficult things in life. And it says here, an invalidating social environment can make it very hard to regulate emotions. So just to explain, what that means is lots of people who have difficulty regulating their emotions have grown up or have had some experiences that mean they haven't learned how to regulate emotions, or they haven't been able to regulate emotions because that environment hasn't given them the chance to do that. So for example, that could be an environment that tells you your emotions are wrong, you shouldn't be feeling like that, stop crying, why are you being such a crybaby, don't get angry over nothing, you need to just shut up, you know, those kind of things, invalidating statements like that. Of course, if you get them as a one-off, you know, it probably won't have much of an impact, but if you're getting it day in, day out, every single day, it obviously builds up and can have a really big impact on how you understand yourself, your self-esteem, and maybe even make you fear your emotions and kind of try and push them away, or it actually makes your emotions get bigger because you think, why is no one understanding me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I control myself? I must be terrible because my emotions are so chaotic and I don't know what to do. It kind of creates this cycle. The other part of that is that it could be an environment that completely ignores your emotions. So lots of people have grown up in societies or environments where it's kind of like, oh, you're emotional, we just need to embarrass, you know, that's embarrassing, like, don't show that, you know, oh, suck it up, like, man up and don't be a crybaby, you know, all of these really damaging phrases like that. Or, you know, people could have been told in so many ways that it's not okay to show emotion. And of course, telling somebody not to show emotion, spoiler alert, doesn't actually get rid of the emotion. So yeah, and the other thing it mentions here is that people who invalidate children, or, you know, adults as well, they're often not doing it on purpose. Sometimes they are deliberately being cruel, but there are times when people are neglecting children's emotions or not doing the right thing for children simply because they don't know what to do, or they think they're doing the right thing but they're just not sure what to do, or maybe they themselves can't cope very well, and maybe they need help, so they're taking it out on other people, which obviously is not right, but this happens without people's intentions sometimes. So yeah, so that's kind of a bit of a background to who DBT is for, in a way. DBT is a type of therapy that's quite intense, so it is quite a long-term therapy. It's not an infinite therapy, it's not one that can go on for years and years and years without any stopping point. I think generally it has an end point, but that's normally 1 or 2 years. So in my case it's been like 1.5 years, closer to 2 because of a couple of things that happened for me, and I had to like you know, do sessions once every 2 weeks instead of every week. And normally the structure of DBT is where you have a one-to-one session with your one-to-one therapist, so just you and your therapist talking. Then a class, so it's a group session. It's a bit like a class in a way because you're learning skills. So I'll come on to that in a minute, DBT skills. So we've talked about the one-to-one session, the group session, and there's also a phone element to it. So in my case, I was able to phone and text my therapist throughout the week in order to get support. And it's really to help you embed your skills that you learn in your group, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So now we know what those components of the therapy are, let me talk about what the therapy involves. So DBT therapy, there are 4, or is it 5, different modules, and they are like topics that you cover and learn about. So the first topic that you learn about in DBT is mindfulness. And let me tell you, it's not that kind of mindfulness that you might see advertised in magazines, and it's not about lighting a candle and staring at it. It's not about doing yoga. It's not new age or anything like that. As wonderful as that can be for a lot of people, and I personally love yoga, but it's not for everyone. Mindfulness is the core of DBT because it's about noticing. It's about stopping and noticing what is going on. And if you can't do that, then you can't progress onto the next part of DBT. So it's super important that you do the mindfulness section so that you can observe what's going on, notice what's going on, and the crucial part of that is not judging what's going on. So, for example, instead of saying, I'm panicking, oh my gosh, I'm panicking because I'm a terrible person, I shouldn't do this, I need to stop this, oh my gosh, everyone hates me, you would then pause, you'd be saying, okay, I feel like I'm panicking, my heart rate is going up and down, I can feel myself sweating, I can feel tears down my cheeks, I'm having thoughts that I'm, a terrible person, and noticing that that's a judgment. It's a judgment that you're a terrible person. That's not actually a fact. So that's, in a small nutshell, what the mindfulness module is all about. Obviously, there's a lot of detail that I've missed out. Okay, and the next module that is in DBT is emotion regulation, and that's all about learning about emotions. So noticing emotions, what are emotions telling us, what are the urges associated with emotions. Before I started DBT, I thought that I was very emotionally literate. I thought I was a bit of an expert. Turns out I did know quite a bit about it, but in terms of thinking about my own emotions and what they're trying to tell me, DBT was invaluable for me to stop and learn, what are my emotions doing? What are my emotions actually doing to me? How can I tell? What are they telling me? And what do I need to do about it? That's the key part. What do I need to do about my emotions? Because in DBT, it tells you that your emotions are, it's a valid response. How you feel is how you feel. There's nothing bad about that. There's nothing wrong with that. That is how you feel. And it's probably due to things that happened to you that were not your fault. That's how you feel. However, it does tell you that in order to suffer less, you often need to do something about your emotions. So, for example, feeling sad, staying in bed all day, not eating, crying, wanting to self-harm, ignoring all your friends, if you have friends, who are, I don't know, it tells you what can you do to prevent that from going down the cycle further and further and further. And often it's about challenging the assumptions of things like, well, I'm worthless and everyone hates me, so I should stay in bed. I remember my therapist telling me, but you're a human like everybody else. You wouldn't wish that on your enemy. So why are you judging yourself like that? And it was kind of like challenging those assumptions of, well, I deserve this. I deserve to suffer. I should suffer. I've done something wrong. It's about almost having that like universal approach of treating yourself how you would treat another person, and it's about slowly developing that compassion for yourself even when you don't feel you deserve the compassion. Because lots of times people would tell me, oh, be nice to yourself, and excuse me, be kind to yourself and look after yourself, and all of these things that were really kind and really kind-hearted, but to me just felt absolutely and utterly pointless. I just wanted to shout and say, be like, but no, I don't deserve this, and I don't feel like I deserve this. That's my dog trying to get in the door. Like you're coming in. So yeah, so it was kind of in the one-to-one sessions where I would have to, I would learn how to challenge those assumptions and try and kind of treat myself in a more universal way that I treat other people. Okay, so the next module in DBT is distress tolerance, which is definitely one of my favourites, and that's going into things like how to deal with a crisis, how to cope when a crisis hits you and you feel like you're gonna hurt yourself or do some damage to yourself or your life. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, the joys of having a dog. So yeah, so distress tolerance skills have been absolutely vital for me, for managing, because once you know how to manage a crisis, that can actually help your mood overall, because it stops things from getting worse, helps you kind of make steady progress rather than just like up and down, crisis good, crisis bad, you know, that kind of roller coaster ride. And the fourth module of DBT is called interpersonal effectiveness, and that's talking about relationships. So it's things like how to ask for things, you know, having the right to ask for things, feeling like you're worthy of asking for things, how to say no to people, how to respectfully challenge people, and things like that. And I do think those modules are really important, because I've noticed that quite a lot of people with BPD are in quite challenging social situations, or even abusive relationships and things like that. So these social skills are really important in helping people with BPD to learn how to advocate for themselves in a way and stand up for themselves, because that's something that not everybody with BPD has had a lot of support with in their life, maybe. Not everyone, obviously, but I think quite a lot of people with BPD have had trouble asking for things that they need. And there's another module which is called Middle Path, and it's about this dialectical thing. So dialectical behaviour therapy, the dialectical is basically finding a balance between two things. So good, bad, middle ground, or like, you know, not eating anything at all, eating loads, balanced eating, or like, let me think, you know, being obsessed with tidying your house so that you're tidying your house like every hour of every day, to not tidying your house at all, and it's, you know, you're crawling through because you can't get in, but having this middle ground. So it's kind of like finding the synthesis, the like fusion in between of all the different ideas, and that's where the dialectical comes in. And so there's quite a lot of talking in DBT about how to get into that like middle ground, because often people with BPD tend to have this quite all or nothing thinking, and it's quite understandable that people have all or nothing thinking, because it's been a way to like protect yourself, and it's been a way that you might have needed to interact to get your needs met somehow, or, you know, it might just be all you've ever known. So there's nothing bad about that. That's just how it can be for a lot of people. So yeah, this is probably the longest video I've ever made. Let me know if you've tried DBT or if you would like to. I'm very aware that DBT is not available to everybody, sadly. In the UK, I know that it can be quite hard to get, which for me was quite hard until I moved house. So I did quite a lot of learning online about it, on videos on YouTube, and reading books about it. So yeah, let me know what your experiences have been or not been. Maybe you didn't like DBT, maybe it didn't work for you. I know it's not for everybody. And yeah, love to hear from you. Thank you.